Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Jaden. Today we have a quick trade recap for you guys of the trade that I took today on NQ. In this video, I'm going to be covering how I came up with my decision to take the trade, but not only that, if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll show you a live trade of the exact trade that I took. If you are new here, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as it only helps me out to be able to make the best possible trading content for you guys. Without further ado, let's jump on the charts into this. So I've kind of removed everything. We're going to start from scratch real fast. So usually when I jump in, I like to just check the daily. Over as far as the daily, it looks like we've kind of broken structure here. It looks like we could be shifting out of what has been this very bearish month, right? So this last month kind of just been going down and down, but when we broke above this to me kind of signals like, hey, there's a good chance that we could be heading to go higher here, right? And so we seems like we've been respecting, and respecting to me just means that we haven't been closing below this fair value gap right here. So that kind of gives me some pretty bullish bias as far as the daily goes. All right, so we jump over at the 4 hour. 4 hours kind of the same. Looks like we've been respecting this 4 hour fair value gap right there. So I had a pretty bullish bias running into today. But generally when I go to chart stuff out, I'll jump onto the 15-minute. I noticed that right down here we had this 15-minute fair value gap that we've been respecting quite a bit this morning, right? So we had that 15-minute fair value gap, and then this morning we also went in and we tapped this fair value gap here. Right, so we came up, we bounced off this fair value gap. We've kind of just been consolidating all morning between the two. If you jump down to the 5-minute now, I'm going to go somewhat quick. Right, we had this 5-minute fair value gap that we respected earlier this morning. That's kind of all that I've seen for the 5-minute and the 15. I mean, we disrespected this fair value gap right here that we kind of bounced off a little move right here. You probably could have found something. But really my main focus was kind of just these two key points, right? And when I was on, we had already bounced right here at about 10 o'clock this morning, 9:50, right? So those were kind of my two key areas. So over on the 1-minute, what I was noticing, and the reason for me taking this trade, was that we came down, we bounced off of this 15-minute fair value gap. We kind of swept some pretty low level resistance liquidity, right? So like really the last one, it's like right here. Had a little bit of liquidity here. We didn't quite take out, these other lows from, well, these morning lows. We didn't take out these morning lows, we kind of left them open. Essentially, from the morning, we came up, we bounced, and we kind of just sold off, right? Until we found this 15-minute fair value gap, which kind of found some support for it, which led us over to here, where the trade was happening, right? So we initially broke structure right there, and I wanted to see a little bit more before I entered, just to kind of get a little more confidence. And initially, I kind of thought that maybe we were going to come up, maybe we're going to tag this fair value gap here, and we were going to head lower, right? It was just a short retracement before we continued to go down and take out those daily lows from this morning when the market opened. But we didn't even tap into it yet. We kind of just barely missed it, right? And I thought that maybe we wouldn't reach it at all when we inversed this fair value gap right here, which I wasn't willing to go into shorts just because we hadn't quite tapped into this fair value gap. So I was kind of waiting to see, like, hey, are we going to come down and take out these lows? And if we would have tapped into this and then, had to re-break back to the downside after this trend was happening upwards, I would have taken shorts and then, targeted these lows, or targeted what my usual target is, just a 2.0 risk to reward ratio based off of where I entered, where my stop loss is originally set, which you'll see that when I show you kind of my entry and where my exits were. we had this inverse fair value gap, and then we proceeded to head higher, which the moment that we inversed right here, I kind of thought, okay, yeah, no, we're going to continue to head higher after we bounced, right? And my initial, what I wanted to see us end up taking out was these highs right here. But I was very cautious knowing that we hadn't quite taken into account or inversed this fair value gap right here, right? So fair value gap, well, it was at the time this, right? So now it's an inverse fair value gap, but we ended up inversing this, which gave me a little confidence to want to enter after our initial bounce and our liquidity sweep down here, right? Got a 15-minute bounce, took out a little bit of, some liquidity, started to head higher. As we were trending up, gave me a little more confidence that, hey, we're time to shoot for some longs, right? And so when we broke structure again, so after we broke structure to the downside here, we rebroke structure here with this candle. And my entry candle is based off of a break of structure usually when I get in. So my entry looked somewhat like this. Now I was still keeping in mind that there is a fair value gap here that we could bounce off of, which obviously is no longer a fair value gap as it's now an inverse fair value gap. As you can see, that's what ended up happening to it before we started to head higher. And I ended up taking a trim because, well, we hit well past a 1.0 risk to reward ratio, but my entry looked something like this. I can pull it up. You can see exactly where I got in and where I got out. So I got in right here at 21,790. All right, I took my first initial trim here at 21,802.25. And after that, I put my stop loss right above break even, cover the commissions. And then I ended up trailing it higher because I had my TP originally set here, but then I wanted to just hit the 2.0, call it quits. So where I had my stop loss kind of looked something like that. So I just barely missed it. So I was trailing pretty tight when I thought we were going to break this, just to make sure that, secured as much profit as possible in the event that we bounced off of this 5-minute fair value gap here. And then maybe headed lower without quite taking out this liquidity. But as you can see, it ended up taking it. So just got a little too antsy with my stop loss and lost out on a little bit of profit. Am I mad about it? Not really. Made some profit. Made a little over, probably about a 1.5 risk to reward ratio between the two. That about sums up, kind of why I took this trade. So with that, I am going to show you guys the live trade that I did take. It'll show it, from when I got in, when I got out. If you guys will enjoy that, like I said, if you guys could please hit that like and hit that subscribe button, as it only helps me out to be able to grow this channel and to give you guys the best possible trading content that I can. Thank you and enjoy.